If you see an alien ship up in the sky and something like that catches your eye, does that give you some sort of power? Well, you might not believe in your own soul, but you believe in UFOs. It doesn't make sense. Obviously, the physical conditions of a highly advanced people or type of being from another star system that's traveled here hyperdimensionally, let's say over the span of 3 months they can travel from another star in the Milky Way to our star. That seems absurd and illogical. Well, if you think about it, everyone's existing in the world of ideas, so until the thoughts change, there's not going to be any new stuff in the hyperdimension, or they call the occult dimension, which is an overused term by bigots and prejudiced people to entrap someone's soul against their own will. We'll have none of that in the future. And when the thoughts begin to move from physical to more immaterial ideas in this world we live in, then maybe we'll want to see a peaceful relationship with our stars and planets and the ones in the galaxy. And we'll begin to see that science as we know it is incorrect. And their ideas of what outer space really is are abiding in fallacy and do not shed any light on the nature of existence. So, when the thoughts of the world begin to move, then they'll move towards a new idea. When this will happen could be 1,000 years. It could be 20 years. It could be... There's hundreds of thousands of years behind us, even in the Western context, and there's got to be that much ahead of us. And by Western, I mean European people, just less Asian than Asians, basically. But we're all pretty much mixed in the melting pot of the world's histories. UFOs and extraterrestrials always have visited this planet from every civilization at some point. I don't believe, however, that they visited as frequently as they have been since Roswell, around that time. Whether Roswell was an accident or was maliciously shot down by Earth people is not my place to judge for certainty. And it really makes no difference. The lack of understanding of karma and its esoteric context is what's causing a lot of errors with the world of the Europeans and the Americans, etc., Western world. So the concept that there is no law of nature within the soul is bringing people to think that they can get away with a lot more because they see human death as the supposed end of reality because they're not connected to nature like the Egyptians were, who basically believed that they could go into an hawk or they could go into an eagle. So there are human spirits in animals. So this I know, and any real shaman would tell you the truth of that. And shamans could be considered Egyptian in some more esoteric type of concept of the word. So they're going to continue to pretend or really see UFOs. Yes, some of them are real. Like Tercer Millenio tries to be factual most of the time. And they get a lot of footage of alien craft that's come from other systems to ours to do their form of science, highly advanced science. But this doesn't mean that it's linear to our world. It doesn't mean that we'll eventually advance in their direction. The amount of possibilities of reality don't have a limitation, so it could be surmised that advancement in the human race could go in any direction, back towards the spiritual direction, the etheric. Are the alien beings etheric? Not necessarily. Obviously, they may have a different density. But the one thing that has confused, especially the Westerners, with their biblical lies, that they're not seeing things for what it really is because they believe in material physics as the final say, not esoteric understanding of nature or a mystical ideal of what nature is and what surrounds us. So if you create a false environment of the mind, of the body, by human construction and illusion, and also density of material, physical reality, false reality, reflection of spirit, that there is time being non-cyclical, which it is cyclical, without beginning or end, then you would also not have the proper tools of thought, of intelligence, to perceive or to understand anything about a UFO that might visit this planet peacefully. So obviously, if there's peaceful, there could be not peaceful people out there. But if you consider the enormity of our solar system alone and the theogony of how it is existing with actual intelligence in it and invisible spheres above it, then what I'm saying is you'll have a better understanding of the karma of advanced people within our solar system that protect us from potential malicious beings from other systems, and it balances out. So if people in general believe this, they wouldn't be so likely to want to commit crimes, especially not grave crimes as killing people or whatnot, because they would know that there's actual natural reality to existence, not just a beginning, middle, and end, but an eternal reality that doesn't have to do with heaven or hell or any sort of bigotry, but an actual natural surrounding in the mind, soul, and body. So a big mistake that this Roman reincarnation culture is the overemphasis of buildings in the terrestrial sense, rather than creating buildings and structures that reflect the natural properties around us and the universe. So some of the thinkers that I think maybe were onto that their thoughts have not become in the world thought. They're still, the world as a thought is struggling against the people that, like Buckminster Fuller and Schauberger and these people that had creative ideas that would be able to understand a higher intelligence and not look at beings from other planets and worlds, parallel dimensions, different star systems as being outside of our world. That our world would be accepting of the other worlds and all forms of life. So there's an interior and an exterior, an internal reality and an external illusion, the external created realm that doesn't exist as it is, and it goes through the changes from forever of dimension and evolution, destruction, creation, and preservation, and the seven secret sins of mankind and all these things that don't have any reason behind it. And in the world of thought, there is no appreciation of reason. Not since the classical Greeks, I would think. But I agree with Blavatsky about the Greeks, that they are basically modern to us. So there may not have been as many extraterrestrial visitors as we have now. But without spirit or soul, and without a disconnect from the idea of a central God, and a connect to the idea of a natural reality and a spiritual substance that permeates the reality we're in, how are we going to evolve intelligently to represent ourselves in the universe and in the soul of mankind, humankind, womankind, than to perceive UFOs as being something out there, when in fact some of them are more intimately, there's a wasp on my key, intimately connected with our evolution through our spirits. And those would be the ones that are more important than the, typical UFOs, which are some kind of gray aliens that are doing research of their own, and they really don't interact that much. They go into volcanoes, and that's what they do. What's the point of us learning about them if we're not going to be able to update the thoughts of the world? We're not going to be able to change material science. It's basically is what they say the beast is: the material science, the religious intolerance, and the corporate, basically like false world that they're making, like the fast food world. It's not going to survive. There's already a destructive phase coming to it, which really doesn't mean anything bad for most people, especially not in the long run. And they ask me, where are you getting this from? I know these things. I don't have to read them. When you get into reasoning and you read some of the works of Plato and Socrates, and then perchance something exciting would happen, like an illuminating event, a form of enlightenment that tells you it's possible to know anything that you want to know because of the root of reality. So the greats of mysticism, philosophy, occult sciences had somehow connected their soul to the root of their being throughout eternity, throughout the deepest part of reality, straight to who they really are. So they're not really a personality in the sense of, I'm John, you're so-and-so. It's more or less impersonal. And then the idea of individuality is less concrete. But it's still true, and individuality is good. All the philosophers use their own mind to think, to question, to know, and to ask questions. It's not enough to ask them, it's enough to be able to answer them for yourself. But how do you know how to test the answers? And that's through dialectic and reasoning. And these ideas are not part of the world thought at all. There's a small community of that scattered around the globe, but other than that, there's no influence in the grand thought of the world. The world's thoughts are mostly materialistic at this point. A lot of selfish, self-centered stuff. And the concept that we really know about space. The concept that we think the sun is a ball of gas, a ball of fire. That we think that the Hubble telescope is really seeing the truth out there. That to believe in these illusions is not going to last forever. The place we're at now, with the form of food and the form of society and the form of material science and the way that things are running, is a temporary situation. But whatever we can get out of it for ourselves, for our true self, the higher self, is what's going to matter in the destiny of the world. And for me, and for many people that may be awakened, the archaic sciences coming back into view somehow through the astral perception. Since the ancients are not among us living, only we can see is what they left in the astral realm. We can see what they left in the Rig Veda and the works of Plato and all these texts that are still extant, still with us, but not in full. And also every great master had put a stumbling block before the people as a test and also as a protector of his own will and his own foreign magic. So it wasn't selfish, it was actually law that was giving them the right to basically give out false things, label them as truths, so that only the people with enough courage, and enough intelligence, and enough power of reason and mysticism could actually, at some point, become illuminated to those things that are not in today's life, not really being expounded upon. I will admit that Madame Blavatsky attempted those things, and I'll admit that her books have a lot of errors, and that doesn't matter. That's not the point of it. There's a spiritual dimension that has to become part of your process, part of your magic, part of your Magian self. that goes deeper than this incarnation. So some people's past lives, if any of the people from my past life are alive, then that means that they would be connected to me. That would mean that maybe they remember something about it 6,000 years ago. For some people it may be less, it may be more. It doesn't matter to me, because this is not New Age stuff. It's not anything of a group where you have to join something. This is about reasoning, and it's about also believing that there is a soul, and understanding and knowing how to read from the soul and to talk to various beings that are higher than the immediate self, and also beings of your own life and lives that was reserved for masters who walked this planet, and only their shadow, like a ray off the sun, shines upon this planet still. And maybe mostly in the East, but they're all over the world. In the Americas, South America, India, Russia, Japan, Korea. There's no question of that. So there's no real point that the UFOs would need to be visiting us that much. First of all, they're not given a proper platform by the world. You think that they're going to travel trillions of miles and then get a YouTube account? I mean, they want to be put on a pedestal before the world and given a proper introduction, because if they're honest and sincere beings and intelligent and somewhat able to relate to humanity in a universal sense, then it doesn't seem like they should be given a proper welcome and a proper introduction and a proper kind of, what would you call it? What's the word? Like ambassador, you know? But there's so many issues going on that people, the karma from the Roman Empire is definitely affecting this world we're in. And that's enough that I have to say, because you see it on TV. Everything's based on something very heinous and difficult and gruesome. And there's so many topics you could get into, but if you can access the one true thought of the higher self, then a lot of things you could figure out on your own. Or you could actually be told them through dreams or through your higher mind, and not through superstition whatsoever. Superstition is like fear, really. Fear of science, of true science, of science of the soul, science, esoteric science. It doesn't have to be Kabbalah. It doesn't have to be... I think what it has to be is Egyptian, true Egyptian philosophy, or true Buddhist philosophy, and the deeper, darker aspects of it, as Madame Blavatsky wants. It's like people want to call her names or something because she wasn't pro-sectarian. That's not her problem. She did what she wanted to do to bring the occult to the world in its realist, most Socratic essence, her most Brahmanical essence, her most magical self. And so the doctrine is present in her work. It's present in other works, but a little bit more shadowy. And any of those things would help a single person to free themselves from the world's thoughts at present and go into an eternal realm of entire intelligence that can exist. So, any questions? These videos that I'm making, it's September 23rd, 2015. These videos might not be even looked at for several years. it's funny how things work. It's just like a plant on the ground, a weed that grows. You don't see what pattern it'll make while it's growing. It's how does a plant grow from a seed? And the people of this world's science will just tell you, well, quite factually, they'll say with a little snippet kind of attitude, oh, well, it grows by chlorophyll, and it grows by water, and it grows by sunlight, and nutrients in the soil make it grow. That's not the mystical truth. That's not illumination. That's not helping people to see the soul. Life is a true mystery. And when you look at that, that's mysticism, when you begin to see it. So when you begin to see the mystery of one little weed growing from a seed on the ground, and that there is no real, let's say, structure, like it doesn't grow 1, 2, 3, it could grow 1, 3, 5, like a Fibonacci series, or like the number pi. So some things are closer to the life spirit, and some things are closer to the material spirit of no life, of rigidness and coldness and density and not perceiving. So there's invisible UFOs all the time, as far as we can assume. If there's parallel worlds that we don't see, then how come there couldn't be beings we don't see? So what's the point of aliens visiting the world when they gave us their top information in the crop designs the past like 15 years, and then they kind of slowed it off because those designs themselves may have enough information that will last us millions of years to come. So are we perceiving the right interpretation of what is meant by it, instead of taking it to some kind of belief system or using the ideas that are already here with us? Are there people that are creating new ideas from the invisible realm? Because that's the form, if you're listening, that's the form of logic and reasoning that I am personally most fond of, and Plato and his civilization, his philosophers were most fond of, is not from particulars up, like our science of today. That's where their error, that's creating error. It's not from particulars upward. It's from absolute down to particulars. It's from the one nothingness to the multiple existences that have come from that one thing, that one central sphere, that one central sun, the great unknown. So that should answer questions if you're able to be illuminated. Thank you.